Thank you so much, Kate, for doing this today. It's really great to chat to you. So I guess it would be great to ask to start with, really, why did you want to become an acupuncturist in the first place?
Well, I've always been interested in alternative health and always strongly felt that when it comes to health and well-being, an holistic approach is the way forward. I think Western medicine is fantastic, and it has a huge role to play in fixing us in perhaps more acute illnesses and situations. But when it comes to just looking after ourselves and keeping us well, I think that's where the holistic side of things, and acupuncture in particular, comes into play. I personally have always kind of been surrounded by acupuncture. Actually, my family, my father in particular, was quite a big fan, even in sort of the late 80s, which I think was quite pioneering of him. So it's always been something that's been normal and around me. And it was when it sort of cropped up again in my life, in probably my mid-20s. I was working in an advertising agency, which was great fun, and work hard, play hard. And after a few years of doing that, I actually found that that had taken its toll on me. It was a very stressful environment, and lots of pressure, lots of horrible phone calls with people, and I'm actually quite a sensitive person. I found myself getting quite anxious. So I remember going to my doctor and sort of thinking, well, I'm just going to go and mention that I just feel a bit sort of run down and a bit tired, and also my lower back was really aching. And he said, well, I can put you on some pills, and maybe I can sign you up for some physio. And I left just thinking, well, actually, I don't really believe that either of those options are going to help me. So I spoke to my mother, and she said, well, why don't you come and see my acupuncturist? Just have a couple of sessions with her and just see how you go. So I went to see her. She's a 5 elements acupuncturist, and I had just a couple of sessions, and there was very few needles involved. And I left each session feeling like I had suddenly could see the wood for the trees. My life was clearer, the fog had lifted, and also my back didn't feel achy. So from a couple of sessions, I had got a sort of a mental, emotional result, but also a physical result, and I couldn't believe it, and I was just sort of raving to everybody that would listen about how amazing this acupuncture was, and all of that. And I just had this sort of light bulb moment where I remember sitting in a meeting in Slough, and at one of my clients, and it was just a really miserable day, and I think we were talking about some chocolate brand, and I just had a moment, and I thought, no, I don't want to do what I'm doing anymore, and I actually want to make people feel better and to be able to give people that experience that I had with the acupuncture. And so I started looking into courses then and there. I suddenly just felt so inspired by the thought of becoming an acupuncturist, and started looking into courses.
Great. That's quite a powerful story. You obviously had a pretty amazing experience.
It really was. It was just a moment. I've been thinking about changing careers for a while, and I really had, spent so long brainstorming, what can I do? And then it kind of fell in my lap, and it kind of never really stopped from there.
Fantastic. So did you, how long ago did you study?
It must have been sort of 2006 or 7.
Okay.
Probably, well, about 10 years ago, I should think, I started the course.
Yeah.
And I went and had a look around 3 colleges, I remember. Went to 3 open days, and CICM was the last one that I went to, and I have to admit, the previous 2 that I'd been to, I hadn't felt hugely inspired. But when I got to CICM and saw, the beautiful building, the bright red front door, and I just felt like this was the right place for me. It got that feeling. It was very friendly, very welcoming. We had a talk by, I think it might have been Peter Mole, and it was just very obvious for me that this is where I wanted to study. I was really excited by what Peter had to say and by everybody there, and also the nature of the course being 5 elements and TCM give you a brilliant toolkit for treating patients. They really do, and I use both. In most treatments. So I actually signed up pretty much then and there, and I loved studying there. I think I signed up in the June, and the term started in September. I did the weekday course, which was on a Monday and Tuesday, and they're long, 2 very long days. So I think it's important that people are prepared to work really hard to get through the course. It worked for me because I was able to do some part-time freelance work as well during the rest of the week, and commuted up. In fact, I ended up staying over on Monday night after the first year, because it just saved on a bit of commuting, because I live in London. I stayed at the Travel Lodge, which worked out actually generally cheaper than my train fare.
Okay.
So and I mean, I loved studying at CICM. It's hard work going back to studying. I did an English literature degree after A levels, obviously, and it's definitely hard work going back to studying. I find it, having to sit still in the classroom and listen is so different to being at work and buzzing around doing things. And I found it was quite tiring to start off with. I also found it hard to go, obviously, from saying this is very much my own issue of like status, but just saying, oh yes, I work in an advertising agency, where people will get, oh my god, that's so cool, to saying, oh, I'm studying acupuncture, and people would go, oh, okay. But actually, I think most people were quite excited by that. In the end, it was my issue that I thought people would be sort of find that a bit strange. But actually, most people had a very positive story about their aunt, or some person that they know who had a very good experience with acupuncture. So it led to some very interesting conversations. But in terms of studying, like I say, it was hard work. So I think it's really important to make sure that you are you're prepared for that, and I think they do make it quite clear that this is a commitment, and you need to make sure that you've got your childcare sorted out, your finances sorted out, all of that, so that you do have the time to commit to not just the Monday and Tuesday or the weekends that your course that you're doing, but also all the studying and the assignments that go with it.
I guess everyone's going to handle that sort of work-life study balance a bit differently. How did you manage that?
Well, I was lucky that I would get some freelance work. Firstly, I studied before I had children, which obviously took away the need to arrange childcare. I was probably in my mid to late 20s when I was studying. So yes, no children, and yes, I just arranged some work on a few of the rest of the days. But you do need to allow at least a day or two, at some point in the rest of the week to study, particularly in the second and third years. So yes, it's definitely, you need to arrange your time, and just sort of realise that it's not just 2 days a week.
Kind of sticking on that note in a way, and maybe you've said your bits, but just to check if there's any more, what would you say to someone who was thinking about studying, kind of maybe the positives and negatives?
Well, the positives are that it's an incredible subject to learn about, and it opens your eyes not just to the the ins and outs of acupuncture and the theories, but just to the world on a, you know, macro level as well, you know, because you learn about how the world affects the human psyche and the human body, and it makes you appreciate so many other things in terms of just how the world works, how the seasons work, how emotions work. You learn a lot about yourself. You have to be, I suppose, positive and negative. You have to be very prepared to put yourself into the course, actually. And there's lots of sessions where you'll do partner work, and you'll really kind of question what these emotions are that you've got and how they affect the body. And you know, it can bring up stuff for people, but I think as a, you know, future practitioner, that's important that you know how these emotions feel and how they affect you, because those are the patients that you're seeing, and you need to understand, you know, how grief expresses itself physically and emotionally, and how to recognise it. So there are definitely some days where you find yourself doing a lot of reflection on your own stuff, but that's a positive thing as well, because I think it makes you a better practitioner and better able to empathise with your patients. There are times when, well, it's just, I suppose, on that empathy level, it takes a little while to learn how to engage with your patients, I think, actually, because whilst you're going through the course, it's all, you're discussing all these emotions quite often, and as you start off, you can find yourself getting quite involved with your patients. So another thing that I think you learn on the course is how to be able to support your patients without necessarily trying to become a sponge for their problems, and realising that you can't take their problems away from them. You can just help them to overcome them with the skills that you've got. So yes, you know, it's definitely not, you know, you're not doing a maths degree. You have to get involved yourself as well. But it's an amazing, eye-opening, incredible course. I also found that the sort of on a slightly different level, but I found that the sort of more Western medicine side of the course was incredibly interesting and useful. You learn about anatomy, physiology, disease, and I actually came from a humanities background, so I've never really done too much medicine or science. So just learning how your hands move, or, you know, the bones in your feet, has been so useful and so interesting. So you get such a rounded, hugely in-depth course. It's not just learning acupuncture, you're also learning a lot about what you need to know about the body, the anatomy, the physiology, disease, because patients will talk to you in that language, so we need to then be able to translate it into Chinese medical terminology. So I found that really, really interesting as well.
So a lot of different kind of facets and subjects and things to learn about.
Yeah, you learn a huge amount, and it's fascinating.
Great. So you're in practice now, and where is it that you work, and how many days do you work at the moment?
So at the moment, I am, because I've got a son, and it was easier for me to work from home. I work 2 days a week from home in Fulham in southwest London, which works very well. I work whilst my son's at nursery, and it's brilliant. I can just choose, be flexible with my hours, and I don't have to commute or pay rent in a clinic. So for me, at the moment, at this stage in my life, it works perfectly. When I started out in clinic, I worked full 5 days a week. Once I'd built up my patients, I worked full 5 days a week. I did 2 days at Harley Street, and then I did 3 days in a clinic in Chelsea. And I worked evenings, I worked long days, and I loved it, and that was perfect for then. But the brilliant thing about it is that, even if you haven't established yourself, it's still very easy to work from home if you've got the right setup, and if you've got children, or if you're working part-time still, it's something that you can work around your other commitments.
Great. And yeah, do you specialise in anything at the moment?
Well, it's funny with acupuncture, because you're treating the whole person, and whereas with Western medicine you'll go and see a specialist if you've got XYZ problem. The beauty about acupuncture is that we don't really specialise because we treat the whole person. But I think just purely by nature of the patients that I've seen, I tend to see more women, and so therefore I have seen more women's health problems, gynae problems. I work a lot with fertility, women who want to get pregnant. That's kind of one massive area that I work on, and I enjoy working on. And then I also see a lot of people for stress, and that sort of huge umbrella of stress and all of its facets. So I see lots of people who are having trouble sleeping, who are having tummy problems. A lot of people their stress gets focused in their tummy, so they'll have what doctors will describe as IBS, and acupuncture is just fantastic at helping with that. It's just all of these things that doctors may not necessarily be easily able to fix. A lot of my fertility patients come to me with what doctors have said is unexplained infertility, which is a really depressing thing to hear when you just want an answer or somebody to help you. Likewise with stress, they'll be given maybe some talking therapy options, or even sort of medication, and it's, they don't want that medication, particularly patients I see. They don't want any side effects. They actually want to get to the bottom of things. And it's just they come to me with all these sort of list of symptoms, and pretty much every single one you can relate to stress. And it's wonderful. In probably about, I always ask my patients to come and do a course of 6 sessions. And without much doubt, most of them will be, so much better after that. All their symptoms slowly but surely disappear, and they just feel like feel like themselves again. That's kind of a phrase that you'll hear a lot of your patients saying. I just feel like myself again. And that's what you want to achieve, really. Or you hear them say, "I'm pregnant," which is equally as brilliant.
Yeah, that's always a nice thing, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely. And you go on the journey with them, and you can build, it can be a roller coaster for the patient. It can be a roller coaster for you as a practitioner, because you can't help but get involved in their situation. So it's just wonderful when you do, as most of my patients do, get pregnant, or just suddenly are able to turn their lives around with your help, or with acupuncture's help, and it's incredibly rewarding.
Fantastic. Again, you may have already said this because you've said some wonderful things here, but what would you say are the best things about being an acupuncturist?
Well, I've said on a number of times to people, or on my Instagram, that it's just amazing that you can actually get paid to do something that you love. And it might sound a bit cheesy, but it's completely true. I love what I do. I feel very privileged to see the real side of people. Everybody who walks into your clinic, you'll see them in the waiting room, and you'll think, "Gosh, you look very together. You look like you're, very sorted." And then the person will come in, and it's just so, like I say, it's a privilege to allow that person to take off this facade and to let them show you their vulnerable side and tell you what's wrong. And sometimes you have to coax it a little bit, and sometimes it's not what they say, it's it's how they look, or just something that you get access behind that. And you can learn. Well, it's it's a total privilege to be able to allow people that space to be themselves and to tell you that they're not all right, and then for you to both try and work out how to make things better. Because I think so much, especially now with social media, with all of the everything being about looks and success and all of that, and it's just very, very refreshing to see the real side of people. But what was your question? What's good about what do you love
what are the
about
best bits? What do you love?
Well, I think so. There's there's sort of the huge reward and satisfaction that comes from my job, and the interaction with my patients, the relationships you develop, the fact that you're using your brain. I love it. Every patient is different because we don't treat the headache. We treat the person who's got the headache, because every headache is going to be slightly different for every person. So you're always using your brain, because you can't just think, oh, well, it's a headache, because you have to work out, well, what kind of headache is this, and why is it happening in this person? So it's, you're always reading, you're always researching, you're always expanding your knowledge. Every patient will teach you something, and that is, I love that. I love that. There's never a boring day. And you get surprised along the way. Somebody that you'll get amazing results. People will treat them for insomnia, and then they'll get an email the next day after just one session saying, "I slept for the first time in 5 years." In some patients it takes a bit longer, but then you're just kind of figuring it out every time, and you'll get there in the end. Something will suddenly click into place. So it's great to be just using your brain and always thinking. And on a sort of a practical point of view, it can be lucrative. I think it's really important for acupuncturists, and I guess any therapist, to really value the skills that you have. And I think as therapists we tend to think, oh well, we can't charge a certain amount because we should be doing this from the kindness of our hearts. And I think whilst that's a factor, I also think that actually the more you value what you do, the more other people will value what you do, and there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't put a price on that. You've studied hard for it. You give your patients your 100%. So it can be lucrative, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be.
I think that's something that of the questions, of the kind of the top 5 questions that we get asked at college when people are thinking about coming in, I think one of them definitely is around finances, and both kind of funding the course, the financial commitment, and then what happens at the end, and is it worth me putting in all this time and money? And your take is that you feel it is that right?
Yes, and I think the one thing I would say that's really important is that for the 3.5 years that you're studying, or however long your course is, you are learning mostly about acupuncture. Towards the end, there are sessions on how to start up in clinic, how to run a successful practice. That is really important that you pay attention in those sessions, because once you've left the clinic, you'll have all this amazing knowledge. You have to then set up a business, and you have to set up a practice and a reputation and get yourself out there. I think I'm lucky in that I had a marketing background, so I didn't realise, but it was really useful, because you have to work out pretty quickly who you are as a practitioner and who you want to talk to, and who you are as a brand. You have to become a brand, because then I think you're really clear with what you want to offer and who you want to talk to and who you want to treat. So I think it was really difficult to start up, actually, but not for very long, only for a little while, like a couple of months whilst you're finding your feet, because you have to, there's bits and pieces that you have to figure out. You have to find a clinic. You have to work out whether you want to pay a set rent to that clinic or whether you want to do a commission. I would suggest when you're starting out that you do a commission, so that you don't lose money if you have a quiet day. And you have to work out, how many days a week you want to work. So it's probably worth, starting out just a small amount and then, building it up. I remember a really well-known acupuncturist saying to me once when I was doing clinical observations with her, she said, get your business cards printed and give them to everybody. And I remember doing exactly that. I gave them to everybody I met, practically, in the pharmacy or in the not supermarket perhaps, but, just any interaction you have. Oh, here's my card, I'm an acupuncturist. And it was brilliant, and I went around, because you'll be quiet to start off with, so you'll have time. So make use of that time to go and hand out your cards to every single gym, doctor's surgery, school, nursery, physio clinic, everywhere that you can think of, hairdressers, beauticians, and just get your name out there. Go and introduce yourself. People won't come to you to start off with. You have to go out there. Going off to do a talk. I did a talk at the local hospital. It was really nerve-wracking, but I was so pleased I did it. And just introduce yourself to people that can refer on to you. Nutritionists, physios, everybody, seriously. That's my that was what really got me started. I think I was just always thinking, okay, what can I do? How can I get my name out? I think I did some flyers that I put up around the place. I think it really is a good idea to have a website and start to get your head around that side of it, and the Google world, the world of blogs, and all of that. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can have a very simple website, and there are sort of people that can help you set it up and tell you how to write a blog, and how to sort of just start to get your name out there. Because I think people, obviously word of mouth is brilliant, but that doesn't happen straight away. So you need to make that initial leap and get your name out there. And it's not difficult, but you just have to firstly get clear in your head who you are as a practitioner. Are you going to have a more traditional look? Are you going to have a more modern look? Get some business cards done that you feel represents you, and then just go from there. Start walking the streets, start getting your cards out there, and it's really fun. And
that's such valuable advice. Okay, thank you. I think that's going to be really helpful for lots of people. So that's brilliant.
Because you do need to have lots of different hats. You need to have a business hat. You need to have an accounting hat. You need to have a marketing hat. And that's a really steep learning curve, but it all falls into place. And it's hard. You have to figure out what kind of brand and what kind of practitioner you want to be. But there's room out there for everybody, and you just have to just be confident and get your name out there.
I understand. But is there anything else that you would want to say? Either about your time at CICM, your experience of studying there, or any other gems?
CICM is wonderful. The teaching staff are so knowledgeable and so dedicated, and I've often wished that I could just take John, Angie and Peter's knowledge and somehow put it into my own body. Because what they don't know about, acupuncture isn't worth knowing, and it's just what your time there. If you can absorb as much from people like them as possible, you're going to go far, because they're amazing and such good, so good at teaching a subject that by its very nature isn't black and white. I mean, I often sat in class thinking, because people would ask quite complicated questions, or would want very specific answers to a question, and as a teacher it's probably quite difficult, because it's not a linear thing. You're talking about a subject that is relative to something else. You're talking in terms of is it cold? Well, it's only cold in relation to something that's hot. It's not cold in relation to something that's freezing. So it's an amazing skill to be able to teach something where there's potential discrepancies in answers, and it's as you know, as I was saying earlier, it's around that particular patient. Yes, it's I'm not making sense here, but it's a positive in terms of that patient, but it's a negative in terms of that patient. So anyway, the teaching staff are amazing, and always around if you want to go and talk to somebody, and it's a very nurturing place. I have a brilliant class, and we all keep in touch, and there's a great we've got a Facebook group that we all connect through and still ask each other questions, so it's a very supportive place, and I knew straight away that it was the right place for me, and I still have incredibly fond memories of CICM, and I would certainly advise anybody who's thinking about it to sign up and study acupuncture, because it's rewarding and just, like I said, you get paid to do something that you love and make people feel better.
Amazing. What a lovely note to finish on. So, Kate, thank you so much for your time and your input today. That's really wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. No, pleasure. You're welcome.